Chosen one, pause for a moment. Let the noise around you fade, because what you are about to hear is no coincidence. It's not an accident that you've been led here. There is a message waiting, one heaven has whispered for you alone. Today, something unseen shifted. Behind closed doors, in a quiet moment you never witnessed, your name was spoken not in judgment, not in mockery, but in something more subtle and more revealing. The topic? Your age. Yes, the number that marks your seasons on this earth. But it wasn't just casual conversation, it was intentional. The person who said it, the one they chose to confide in, and the exact words spoken, all of it, had meaning. You may be wondering, why would someone bring that up? Why now? And who else might have been listening? Stay close, and all will be revealed. Because this isn't about gossip. This is about identity, about the silent ways the world tries to define you. It's about the difference between a label and the truth God has written over your life. But hear this, your worth has never been tied to your age, your past, or their words. For the Lord sees not as man sees. Man looks on the outward appearance, but the Lord looks on the heart. 1 Samuel 16:7. The age they mentioned may be a number, but heaven sees something different. Your purpose, your timing, your calling. And that calling does not expire. Every year you've lived has been preparation. Every moment has been written with care. You are not late. You are not too young. You are not too old. You are right on time in the eyes of the Most High. Now, as you step forward into this divine truth, I invite you to respond in faith. Type Amen in the comments if you're ready to break free from the labels others have tried to place on you and step into the identity that God Himself has declared over you. And don't leave just yet, because by the end of this message, we will speak a prayer together, one designed to cover you, lift you, and align you with the path God has already prepared. Now breathe. Let your spirit settle. What's coming next may feel like more than just information. It may feel like revelation. The angel continues, not with urgency, but with calm knowing. Your special person spoke of you again today. But this time, the conversation carried weight. It wasn't chatter. It wasn't small. It was layered, private, and pointed. And the subject was your age. That might surprise you. Perhaps you never imagined they'd focus on something so personal, so seemingly trivial. But there's more here than meets the ear. Humans have long measured age by numbers, by birthdays and calendars. But heaven has never used the same scale. In the eyes of the Most High, age is not the sum of years lived, but the story your spirit tells. Time may mark the body, but eternity traces the soul. As it is written, even to your old age and grey hairs I am He who will sustain you. Isaiah 46:4. Not because of how long you've been here, but because of who you are becoming. Some souls do not age the way others expect. They mature inwardly, not through effort or urgency, but through surrender. There is a stillness in them, one that cannot be taught, only revealed through fire, waiting, and divine timing. And when others speak of these souls, it often sounds like confusion masked as curiosity. How old is she, really? He doesn't seem that age. What they're noticing is not your years. What they're sensing is your alignment, your unusual coherence. It's unsettling, sometimes. Your quiet presence speaks loudly in rooms where noise is normal. You're remembered even when you didn't try to leave a mark. That's because you carry something rare, a spirit unfractured by the chaos around you. In a world fraying at the edges, consistency becomes magnetic. You don't demand attention, but still, it finds you. And this, chosen one, is not a compliment. It's not something to collect. It's a spiritual signal, one that says, this life is speaking beyond words. For some, your presence becomes a mirror a reflection of what they long to reclaim: innocence, peace, wonder. For others, it may stir discomfort, not because of anything you've done, but because your life stands in quiet defiance of what they've come to expect from time: weariness, cynicism, decay. When you do not reflect the corrosion they carry, it confuses their narrative. But again, their reaction speaks more of their wounds than your worth. Consider the story of Moses, whose face radiated light after speaking with the Lord. He did not realize what others saw. He wasn't trying to shine, he was simply obedient, simply aligned. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai, he was not aware that his face was radiant because he had spoken with the Lord. Exodus 34-29. You, too, are not called to explain your radiance, only to remain faithful to the source of it. So, if your age has become a topic behind closed doors, it's because your spirit has made itself visible in ways people can't quite name. You've touched something eternal. And when the eternal breaks into the ordinary, the conversation can never stay shallow. This is the nature of true light. It doesn't beg to be seen, it simply is. And in being, it changes the atmosphere. So, walk on, chosen one, not in defense of your essence, but in quiet trust. Heaven knows how old you are, not in years, but in wisdom, in grace, and in how faithfully you've carried the light. Let that be enough. There comes a moment, quiet yet piercing, when the focus shifts not just to what was said, but to how it was said. Not just to words, but to intent. You've already seen that your name was brought into the light of conversation. You've sensed the weight of it, the tension between spoken age and silent essence. But what comes next is not merely about you. It is about the one who heard. Words have always carried more than sound. They carry atmosphere, they carry choice. And this time, the one who spoke about you chose their listener with care. This was not a careless confession or an impulsive remark thrown into the wind. No, your special person didn't stumble into this. They planned it. And the one who was there, she was not an innocent bystander. She was not some harmless presence. She was selected. This matters, because when someone speaks your name to someone else, they are not just speaking of you, they are releasing an image of you into that person's understanding. And the person chosen to receive that image, to hear those words, reveals much more than you might first imagine. This woman, she was not just anyone, she was someone they wondered about. Someone they maybe even questioned silently, but hadn't yet drawn conclusions about. By offering her a piece of you, your special one was making a quiet comparison, testing a spiritual scale, not with facts, but with feeling. It's easy to assume this is simply a matter of curiosity or casual sharing, but in the spiritual realm, these moments create openings, and openings lead to influence. Influence leads to perception. Perception, unchecked, becomes narrative. The woman who listened may not have said much in return, but silence is not always absence. Sometimes it is calculation. And that's why this matters, not because of who she is, but because of what she now carries. She carries a version of you that was handed to her piece by piece through someone who once claimed to know you best. Whether spoken in admiration, in uncertainty, or in confusion, your age was placed into her hearing, not as a detail, but as a symbol. Something in you stirred something in them, and now that stirring has been passed on. Consider how often in Scripture people are tested not through grand events, but through small, deliberate actions. Joseph's brothers didn't destroy him with a single violent act. They talked first. They reasoned. They spoke of him when he wasn't there. And in those private words, in that shared silence among themselves, the plan was formed. "Here comes that dreamer," they said to one another. "Come now, let us kill him." Genesis 37:19-20. The plan was born in conversation long before it was carried out. The betrayal began with speech. Words, chosen one, are never neutral. They either build or bruise, either plant seeds or pull up roots. And when someone speaks your name in a moment of spiritual uncertainty, it reveals more than their thoughts. It reveals their struggle. It is often easier for the human heart to speak of someone than to sit with what that person's presence awakens in them. You may have never asked to be compared. You may never have invited the conversation, but you were brought into it. Your age became the symbol, but your essence was the real subject. This is not meant to sow suspicion. It is meant to bring clarity, because clarity protects peace. The woman who heard these words now holds an image of you that she did not earn, that you did not give, and that she may not rightly understand. And yet, she holds it. That alone is enough to change atmospheres, to shift dynamics, to stir emotion. But you, chosen one, are not held hostage by the stories others tell. You are not defined by who others invite into your sacred narrative. As Paul reminds the believers in Corinth, we are hard-pressed on every side, but not crushed, perplexed, but not in despair, struck down, but not destroyed. 2 Corinthians 4-8-9. The world may speak about you in shadows, but heaven still sees you in light. Let this truth steady your heart. When someone shares something sacred about you without your presence, it is not always a betrayal. Sometimes it is exposure not of you, but of them. The heart speaks what it is full of, and in revealing you, they may have unintentionally revealed themselves. This woman now knows something about you, but what she does with it is not your burden, it is hers. What your special one intended, what they hoped to gain or confirm by involving her, that will unfold in its own time. But you, dear one, must not bend under the weight of their curiosity. Your identity does not shift because someone else mishandled it. Your age is not a weakness. Your spirit is not a rumor. What is real in you cannot be erased by what is misread in others. Walk on in quiet strength. Let their choices speak for themselves. You are not the one being tested here. You are the one being revealed, not through argument, not through reaction, but through the quiet power of simply continuing to be exactly who you are. And in the eyes of the Most High, that is enough. Some bonds are not loud. They do not announce themselves or demand validation from the outside world. They do not require public ceremonies or constant declarations to exist. Their strength lies not in display, but in depth. There are connections that move like rivers beneath the surface, quiet, steady, undeniable. They do not need to be seen in order to be real. Their reality is felt in the atmosphere, in the shift of a moment, in the silence that surrounds a name. These connections often speak most clearly when no one is speaking at all. That is why your special person didn't need to explain you. They didn't need to defend your place in their life or draw lines in the sand. They only needed to say your name. And when they did, the energy shifted. Something changed in the room. The atmosphere tightened or softened or paused just enough for someone to notice. That is the power of a real bond. It changes things invisibly. It doesn't force attention, but it cannot be ignored. Some people feel this shift and grow still, reflective. Others feel it and become unsettled, even if they don't understand why. It's not always what is said that creates the reaction, it's what is felt. There are times when love is not tested through argument or absence, but through observation. A third party, watching closely, listening intently, sees something they were not meant to see. They see a quiet loyalty, a thread of understanding, a truth that was never spoken out loud, but was present nonetheless. This kind of seeing doesn't require insecurity. It comes from spiritual attunement, from the subtle perception of a bond that doesn't beg to be seen, but is nonetheless visible to anyone paying close enough attention. Your special person may have sensed something was off, not because of a word said, but because of a word withheld. A glance that lasted too long, a pause that came too late. And rather than confront it, they watched. And in that watching, they gained more insight than confrontation would ever have given them. That kind of patience is not weakness, it is spiritual discipline, and it echoes the quiet strength we see in the person of Jesus himself. There were moments in his life when he could have answered accusations, justified himself, clarified misunderstandings, but he didn't. When he stood before Pilate and was asked, "Are you the King of the Jews?" he answered only, "You have said so." Luke 23:3. And when the accusations continued, he gave no reply, not because he was defeated, but because he was clear. He knew who he was, and he knew that truth doesn't need to shout. Your bond is like that. It doesn't fight for attention, it doesn't need to. Its existence is its defense. And yet, when something so steady is noticed by someone whose own spirit is restless, it can provoke a response. Not always an outward one, but an inward disquiet, a measuring, a wondering, a quiet comparison that says, "Why does this feel so different? Why does this connection speak so clearly, even in silence?" Sometimes people study what they do not understand. They observe without admitting it. They test the edges of a bond to see if it holds, to see if it falters under pressure. Not because they want it to fail, but because they don't know how to sit with something that is whole when they feel fragmented. This does not make them enemies, it makes them human. But it also reminds you of the responsibility that comes with authenticity. When you walk in what is real, you walk in what others will eventually see. You cannot always protect your bond from being noticed, but you can protect how you respond to being seen. And the greatest way to do that is not through defense, but through integrity. When your love does not change shape to fit someone else's comfort, when it does not shrink in the face of suspicion, when it does not perform under the pressure of eyes that don't understand, it becomes its own shield. We see this truth in the story of Ruth and Naomi. When Ruth chose to stay with Naomi after all was lost, she didn't make a show of it. She didn't demand recognition or reassurance. She simply said, "Where you go, I will go. Where you stay, I will stay. Your people will be my people, and your God, my God." Ruth 1:16. And in that quiet vow, made without spectacle, history shifted. A lineage began. A Messiah would one day come through the bloodline of that simple, unwavering commitment. This is the power of a connection that needs no audience to be real. And so, when your bond is watched, not challenged, not criticized, but observed, you are being trusted with something sacred. You are being asked, without words, will you remain consistent? Will you remain steady? Will you remain whole, even when others are unsure? This is why you are being asked to wait. Because truth unfolds at its own pace. And when you are rooted in what is real, you do not need to rush the process. The ones who seek to prove too quickly often reveal more about their anxiety than about reality. But those who wait, those who allow time, stillness, and character to speak, those are the ones who are never shaken when the truth finally comes. By your endurance, you will gain your lives. Luke 21:19. Endurance, not explanation. Patience, not performance. So if you feel the weight of being quietly watched, if your connection is stirring questions in places where insecurity hides, remember, that's not your burden to solve. You were never asked to make your love small enough to avoid notice. You were asked only to carry it well. And when you do, it becomes not just a refuge for you, but a quiet testimony to everyone who comes close enough to feel its warmth. Let that be enough. Let it speak. Let it stand. For a long time now, something unspoken had lived quietly in the background of your special person's awareness. Not loud, not obvious. Just a quiet pull in the chest, a sense, a nudge, a whisper that would not fade. Something about that woman felt off. Not hostile on the surface, not openly against you. But beneath her smile, beneath her politeness, there was a tension that couldn't be ignored. The whisper said, "She is jealous." But of what? Not of what you have, of who you are. Jealous of the peace you carry. Jealous of the connection you share with someone she does not fully understand. Jealous of the bond that continues to strengthen, wordless at times, yet unbreakable. A bond built not on show, but on something deeper. Mutual recognition, quiet alignment, spiritual resonance. She could feel it, and so could your person. But instead of reacting with confrontation or accusation, they chose another path. One that required stillness, one that required discernment. They decided not to provoke chaos, but to observe character. And so, like a thread pulled gently from a tapestry, they brought your name into the room. Not to boast, not to stir trouble, but to listen. They didn't mention your routines or your appearance. They didn't list achievements or stories. They chose something specific, something subtle, yet loaded with spiritual meaning. They spoke of your age, and with reverence they said, "You look like an angel, untouched by time." Those words were not light. They were not empty. They were chosen with care. Because true beauty, the kind that confuses and disarms, is not found in youth or perfection. It is found in the kind of light that time cannot erode. The kind of light that still shines through quiet eyes and steady presence. It is written, "Those who look to him are radiant. Their faces are never covered with shame." Psalm 34:5. And that radiance, yours, has always been difficult for others to place. The words were spoken softly, but they landed with force. Because beauty like that challenges what is false. Peace, like yours, exposes restlessness in others. And in that single moment when your name was spoken with such grace, the test was set in motion. And then it happened. It wasn't what the woman said. It was what she couldn't say. Her lips did not form protest, but her silence revealed more than words ever could. Her eyes flickered in a way that revealed what her heart had tried to hide. Her face could not hold the mask. Something cracked, something slipped, and in that instant, your person saw with perfect clarity. There was no need for a debate, no argument. Enough was revealed for discernment to take its place without confrontation, without accusation. Fourth, guard the sacred spaces of your life, not by building walls, but by setting wise boundaries. Even Jesus, who gave his life for the world, did not offer his heart to everyone. It is written that he did not entrust himself to them, for he knew all people. John 2:24. Love is not naive. Protection does not mean isolation. It means choosing carefully who has access to the deeper layers of your spirit. Not everyone needs to know your next steps, your deepest fears, or the details of what God is building in you. Let people prove they can carry your presence before you hand them your plans. Fifth, when you sense envy or discomfort from another, choose calm over reaction. Kindness, when it is not performative, has power. It does not mean you are blind to what is happening. It means you are not controlled by it. When others cannot manage their inner shadows, you are not required to shrink in response. Do not be overcome by evil, but overcome evil with good. Romans 12:21. There is strength in quiet dignity, in being kind without explanation, in refusing to mirror what is not yours. Sixth, let go of the urge to unmask or expose anyone yourself. The truth does not need your help to rise, and timing belongs to God. As Ecclesiastes reminds us, there is a time for everything, a time to be silent and a time to speak. Ecclesiastes 3:1-7. You are not called to investigate or accuse. You are called to stay aligned, to remain honest, to be faithful to your own character even when others betray theirs. What needs to be seen will be seen. What needs to be known will become known. You do not need to carry the burden of proving anything. Lastly, anchor your spirit daily in gratitude and trust. Not the kind of gratitude that is loud or polished, but the kind that breathes quietly in your soul. Gratitude softens the heart. It sharpens spiritual awareness. It reminds you that even in a world full of shadows, you are surrounded by light and trust. Trust lets you rest in the knowing that you are guided, protected, and deeply held, even when answers are not immediate and clarity is slow. These are not dramatic choices. They are quiet, internal alignments, but they change everything. They are how you move without fear, how you stay soft without being vulnerable to harm, how you remain open but not exposed, how you love fully without losing your center. And now, because you have been shown how to walk with clarity, your heart is ready not just to hear a prayer, but to dwell inside it, not just to be protected by truth, but to live in it. You are being kept, not by accident, but by design. Walk forward with peace. The ground beneath you is holy. There is a reason envy cannot stay hidden for long, no matter how carefully someone tries to conceal it. It does not escape because of a lack of skill or awareness, but because envy is a fracture in the spirit, and fractures, by nature, disturb the peace of the soul. When the heart is not aligned, it cannot remain still. Misalignment creates unrest. It seeps through in ways the conscious mind cannot control, in a delayed smile, a clipped tone, an unnecessary pause, or an energy shift that says more than any sentence ever could. Spiritual purity has never been about appearing perfect. It is not about flawless words or faultless presentation. It is about alignment, a deep, interior congruence between what you think, what you feel, what you say, and how you move through the world. When your spirit is clean, it does not need to strain. It does not hustle to be understood or contort itself to be accepted. It rests. And in that resting, it becomes unmistakably clear. This is why clarity unsettles those who are in conflict within themselves. When you carry internal peace, you do not confront others with your presence, but you do contrast them. That contrast reveals what is unsettled in them, not because you pointed it out, but because they feel it when they are near you. Light, after all, does not accuse the dark, it simply arrives. And darkness reveals itself by how it responds. Jealousy, by its nature, cannot exist openly. It survives in performance. It must wear a mask to be tolerated, one of flattery, of friendliness, of feigned interest. But masks take energy. Pretense is heavy. And weight, over time, always exposes itself. That's why envy reveals itself, not through dramatic words, but in the subtle distortion of moments, a compliment that doesn't land right, a question that feels rehearsed, a silence that lasts too long after your name is spoken with warmth. These are the cracks in the mask, not loud, but loud enough for the spirit to hear. And the message you've received is not meant to make you fearful of others. It is meant to make you aware of yourself. You don't need to search for envy. You don't need to track it, expose it, or diagnose it in others. The truth is not your burden to carry into the light. It will rise on its own. When peace stands next to unrest, unrest becomes visible. When order meets disorder, disorder trembles. You need only remain steady. This is why you are not asked to explain yourself. not asked to defend your presence, not asked to correct someone's discomfort with your peace, because explanation is often a trap. It draws you into misunderstanding. It invites you into rooms where your truth will be misheard. Defense becomes invitation, and invitation creates entanglement. But stillness? Stillness reveals. Stillness has its own power. In quietness and trust is your strength. Isaiah 30-15. Spiritual cleanliness, true alignment, also keeps you from absorbing what does not belong to you. When your interior world is in order, foreign emotions do not stick. The bitterness in someone else's voice does not penetrate your joy. The tension in their silence does not disturb your stillness. You become a resting place, not a battlefield. You feel what is present, but you do not become it. That is spiritual maturity. That is peace in motion. Many believe that protection means building walls, drawing lines, or walking away. And yes, boundaries have their place. But the deepest protection is not distance, it is discernment. When your heart is clean, manipulation has nowhere to land. When your motives are honest, confusion cannot take hold. When your soul is whole, deception stands out not because you investigated it, but because it simply doesn't match your frequency. The truth becomes obvious, not forced, but felt. This is also why timing is so crucial in this message. The unveiling of what is hidden does not happen all at once. It happens slowly, gracefully, one layer at a time. Not because God is hesitant to reveal, but because the soul must be ready to receive. Pressure builds, circumstances shift, energy unravels. And eventually, the one who has carried pretense for too long can no longer carry it. The mask slips, not because you demanded it, but because the weight became too heavy. This message has shown you this. Nothing needed to be forced. There were no raised voices, no accusations, no scenes, and yet clarity arrived. Truth emerged without harm. That is the rhythm of divine order. It moves without violence. It reveals without destruction. It brings awareness without leaving you bitter. So your role is not to be hyper-aware, scanning every room for threat. Your role is to remain present and deeply at peace. The prudent see danger and take refuge, but the simple keep going and pay the penalty. Proverbs 27-12. Wisdom watches. It adjusts. It steps back without fear and leans in without doubt. It knows when to speak and when silence says more. A settled heart does not need to guess, it senses. And when you live from that space, clean, rooted, and untangled, prayer takes on a new shape. You do not pray from panic, but from purpose. You do not pray for protection out of fear, but as an offering of trust. You do not ask for truth to appear because you are uncertain, but because you believe it already is. From this place, prayer becomes less about asking and more about aligning, less about resisting life and more about flowing with the quiet confidence that heaven sees everything and reveals in due time. You are not praying to hold your world together. You are praying because it already is. And now, resting in that truth, you are no longer preparing for battle. You are standing in peace. And peace, true peace, is its own protection. Even now, as all has been revealed and the veils lifted, something deeper is still unfolding, because the purpose of clarity is never just to expose, it is to transform. To reveal the patterns that once confused you, not so you may revisit them, but so you may be released from them entirely. What was once a mystery has now become insight. What was once heaviness in the heart has now become vision, and with vision comes responsibility not to fix what is broken around you, but to remain faithful to what is whole within you. You see, the greatest shifts in your life may not come from confrontation or dramatic change, They will come from your refusal to carry what was never yours to begin with. The moment you stop absorbing what others project, the moment you stop shrinking in response to someone else's unrest, is the moment your peace becomes power. And the more power you carry quietly, the more the world around you begins to reveal itself, not because you're provoking it, but because light has entered the room. God has always worked in this way, in the silence between David's anointing and his crowning, in the stillness of the garden before resurrection, in the patience of Esther as she waited for the right moment to speak. In all of these, heaven moved not with haste, but with holiness, and so must you, because clarity is not a moment, it is a movement, a slow unfolding, a step-by-step return to what has always been true beneath the surface noise. There will be days when it would feel easier to explain yourself, to defend your motives, to speak just a little louder, just a little sooner. But remember, even Jesus did not justify himself to those who had already chosen not to see. He healed, he taught, he loved, and then he withdrew, not in retreat, but in wisdom. He knew when his voice would be wasted. He knew when silence would speak louder. And that knowing is what allowed him to move with divine clarity through every shadow that tried to confuse his purpose. So too must you learn this rhythm. Not every reaction requires a response. Not every invitation to conflict is worthy of your attention. Some things are best answered with stillness, with a turned heart, with a deeper rooting into who you are when no one is looking. Because the most dangerous distraction is not loudness, it is misalignment. The slow, subtle drift away from your peace in the name of appearing strong. But you were never called to be impressive. You were called to be true. When clarity comes, it does not make you proud, it makes you precise. You begin to walk differently, not with arrogance, but with awareness. You notice when the room shifts. You notice when the question comes coated in comparison. You notice when the warmth feels forced, and yet you do not harden. You do not accuse. You simply adjust. Because clarity does not just sharpen your vision of others, it sharpens your vision of yourself. You begin to recognize what triggers your old need to explain, to please, to prove, and you release it. Because peace is not just a shield. It is a way of being. This is why discernment is such a gift. It doesn't make you suspicious. It makes you still. It allows you to see what is true without judgment. It allows you to hold boundaries without bitterness. It allows you to speak less while saying more. And perhaps most importantly, it allows you to remain soft in a world that has tried again and again to make you hard. There will still be shadows. There will still be misunderstandings. But you are no longer walking through them blindly. You are not reacting, you are responding. You are not guessing, you are listening. You are not guarding your heart in fear, you are guiding it in wisdom. And that, chosen one, is what makes all the difference. So, let this moment be more than reflection. Let it be a reset, not a return to who you were before the revelation, but a rise into who you were always becoming beneath the noise. You are no longer held back by needing to be understood. You are no longer tied to the version of yourself others created in your absence. You are no longer negotiating your light to make others feel comfortable in their shadows. You are here, present, aligned, whole. You are the proof that clarity is not a destination, but a way of walking, a way of living, a way of being that no longer waits for permission to be real. Now, chosen one, after all that has been revealed, we come to the most sacred part of this moment of prayer, not a reaction, not a request born from fear, but a quiet alignment with heaven. If your spirit has been stirred, if your clarity has deepened, then let this prayer find a resting place in you. Let it speak what your heart may not yet have words to say. Father in heaven, we come before you in stillness, not with noise, not with striving, but with reverence. You are the God who sees in secret, who speaks through silence, who reveals truth, not all at once, but gently, layer by layer, with wisdom and mercy. Today we bring before you the quiet things, the conversations that happened when we weren't in the room, the glances we felt but couldn't explain, the moments we knew, deep in our spirit, that something had shifted, yet had no proof to point to. We bring it all to you now, not for justice in our name, but for peace in our spirit. You are not the God of confusion. You are the God of clarity. Lord, thank you for the gift of discernment, for the unseen ways you've been speaking, even through tension, even through silence, for every time you whispered, "Wait," when we wanted to respond. For every moment, you invited us to observe instead of accuse. You have been training our ears to hear beneath the noise, and our hearts to trust beyond what eyes can see. We ask now for a deeper measure of wisdom, not the wisdom of the world, but the wisdom that comes from above. As it is written, the wisdom that comes from heaven is first of all pure, then peace-loving, considerate, submissive, full of mercy and good fruit, impartial and sincere. James 3:17. Let this wisdom take root in us. Let it cleanse our thoughts. Let it guide our boundaries. Let it protect our peace. Father, for every place in our lives where envy has tried to enter unnoticed, where false kindness, masked, hidden bitterness, shine your light, not to expose others for our sake, but to protect what is sacred within us. Teach us not to fear jealousy, but to see it for what it is, a signal that what we carry is real, that our light is not imagined, that our peace cannot be faked. Help us to respond with grace, with calm, with dignity. When we are spoken of in rooms where we are not present, help us not to retaliate, but to trust that truth always rises. Let us be still enough to hear you, strong enough to hold our peace, and wise enough to walk away from what no longer aligns with your calling on our lives. God, we release the weight of being misunderstood. We release the pressure to explain ourselves, to defend what you've already affirmed. May we stop wasting energy proving our worth to people who were never meant to carry our truth. We ask you to cleanse our spirits from offense, from bitterness, from the desire to be seen by those who cannot recognize what is real. Strip us of every urge to chase validation. Let our worth be rooted in you alone, you who search the heart, you who know our becoming. And Lord, we ask you to help us protect what is holy. Give us the discernment to know who is safe. Give us the courage to say less and the confidence to live more. Remind us that some things grow best in quiet soil, that not everything sacred must be shared. Let us carry our peace like oil in a lamp, and may we not give it away to those who were never assigned to carry our flame. We bless those who have been confused by our light. We bless those who have watched us from a distance, who have wondered without understanding. May their questions become invitations for you to work in their hearts. May their restlessness point them back to you. We release them from our expectations. We place them in your hands. Now, Lord, set a new rhythm within us, one of stillness and strength, one of inner order, one where clarity becomes our posture, not our performance. Let your Spirit walk before us into every room, every conversation, every relationship. We no longer walk in blind trust. We walk in clear vision. And from this clarity, we build. As it is written, the Lord will fight for you. You need only to be still. Exodus 14:14. So we will be still, not silent out of fear, but steady in trust. We will be quiet, not in retreat, but in wisdom. And in that quiet, we will listen. And in that listening, we will hear you say, "You are mine. Keep walking. I go before you." Father, thank you for the clarity you've already given and the peace you are still unfolding. Thank you that the masks are falling not by our hands, but by your timing. Thank you that what is real will remain. And thank you for reminding us we do not need to fight for what you've already established. We are held, we are whole, and we are ready. In your holy name we pray. Amen. Thank you for sharing this moment of prayer and reflection. If something in today's message has met you in a place words couldn't before, let it be known not for attention, but as alignment. Leave a comment below and write, "I choose clarity." Let that be your quiet affirmation. Let that be your agreement with truth. And if this journey has helped you breathe deeper, walk stronger, or see more clearly, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next time heaven speaks. Until then, stay grounded, stay aligned, and above all, stay at peace.